Oh, landmines and jellyfish. Welcome back to Knives, I guess, and the secret word of the day is adequate. When you hear the word adequate, I need you to throw your pee bottle at the wall as hard as you can. If you don't have a pee bottle at the ready, pause this video, go fill one up, and then come back. Don't tell your dad I told you to do this either. I don't want him to hit me. But TEMUGEDDON is upon us. This is week 2 of the Superbudget Showdown Temu edition. And of course, the Superbudget Showdown is my personal quest to find the best knife I can for $15 or less. And the ground rules are $15 or less, it's got to have a pocket clip, it's got to be tip up, and it's got to have a locking mechanism. And that locking mechanism is for safety. That tip up carry is so it has the best chance it possibly can of being a good knife for me. And the wife went through and picked almost all of these out for me. I didn't know what they were until they got here. I picked out 1 or 2 myself. And there may be clones, and I apologize up front. I don't like clones. I've made that clear a few times now. But we sent back everything we could that we identified as a clone, and we kind of ran out of time to keep waiting to send them back and wait another 2-3 weeks for them to, a new one to come in. So I did what I could. Now, you guys saw last week. This one is absolute garbage. This took 10th place with no other competitors on the field. It's garbage. I hate this thing. That week sucked. This week, we're going in on this one. And again, I don't have branding on this. Temu, you don't really get branding. You get the letter salad company name, and that's about it. And out of the box, it shaved just a little bit of hair. It did a decent job on push cutting the paper. So the factory edge was adequate. There we go. Start throwing your pee bottles. I got mine. Randy, I don't see you throwing your pee bottle. Okay, that's better. But, the factory edge was all right. The fit and finish are good enough. In the waistband, this carried a lot more comfortably than it looked like it was going to carry. The pocket clip is definitely good enough. And let's flick the bean. The detent is okay. It wasn't great out of the box, but it broke in over the course of the week. The lock is the same thing. It came out of the box sticking really bad and having to take a lot of force to disengage. And as this week's gone on, it's gotten a little bit better centered. It's gotten where it feels more like a normal, well-made liner lock to use. There's not a lot of complaints about the fit, the finish, and the function on here. Everything's fit up pretty tightly. The tolerances are good. The only thing I can really point out is the blade isn't that well centered. Nothing that affects performance, nothing that I would complain about at all, but it's there. It's just barely off center. And there's one minor safety issue that I found, and you can't really see it here in the light, I don't think, but the edge is almost exposed right here. It's about the same height as the liner on the inside of these scales, and you can feel it when you do this. Like if I press down, I could cut myself. So that's one thing worth pointing out. And the scales are 440 stainless steel according to the Temu listing, and the blade steel. Let's flick the bean again. Yep. The other thing is when I'm holding this, it throws me off because both sides, it's symmetrical. The only thing that tells me where I'm indexed is the pocket clip, and I'm not used to having to do that for a knife, so I keep trying to open it upside down. But let's flick the bean. So the blade steel on the Temu listing says 5CR15 in one spot, 3CR13 in another, and it says N390 on the blade. And this is going to be interesting in a minute. But, we are going to overlook the horrifying countenance of this thing. It's got a face only a flea market could love. Bud K gave it a strong 3. And, it does look like something from my days in low-rent neighborhoods. Something one of my friends would be carrying. Or, something along those lines. The guys that don't know a thing about knives, don't care, and, abuse them and beat on them. I would find something like this. Of course, it'd be beat all to hell and back. Paint's mostly chipped off, all that. Like, we know what we're looking at here. I'm sure you know somebody that's had something like this and didn't care. So, we'll ignore the appearances of this thing. Like, I like the goofiness, but this isn't my style of goofiness. The interesting thing about this knife, and the very, very interesting thing is Cardboard Slayer. Now, I want you to lean forward on your toilet seat while you're watching this, and I want you to guess how many cuts it took. And I'm gonna let you think about it for a second. Okay, now that you've made your guess, if you're sitting down, please stand up so you can sit down for this. 300. 300. I ran out of time at work to do Cardboard Slayer and had to bring Cardboard Slayer home with me. Alright, and after 300 cuts, minor edge problems. Let's see that again. Alright, it's a little dull, and that's a little bit of tearing as much as cutting, but still, 300 cuts. Alright, I hit the point where I got tired of doing Cardboard Slayer and figured it was going to go up to 400 or 500 cuts before the edge was completely wrecked. Alright, I know 5CR15 wouldn't do that. I know 3CR sure wouldn't do that. Like we saw that with the last one. After about 50 cuts, those guys would start deteriorating enough where they went from cutting paper and shaving to no longer shaving and no longer cutting paper cleanly. Alright, it would take those brand new out of the box about 50 cuts to start cutting the paper like this just did. And this is where things for me get very confusing. Alright, like, I know, because it costs $6.98. And, you know, you shouldn't be getting M390 for $6.98. However, at Blade Show 2022, when I was there was a lone table in the small room with, like, near the popcorn and flashlight guys. And or it was the big room and nobody else is there. One of those two, but that's irrelevant. All that thing had was a white paper tablecloth from the party section at Kroger and the 3 stacks of knives. And they were all stacked on a Xerox sheet that had the specs of the knife printed on it. And I think it was like 9CR, you know, 2 of them. There was like a cheap, there was a good budget, and then there was M390 on the far end. And it went from, I think, $20 to $30 to $40. $40 for M390. And I am dunking on these guys in one of my bougie Facebook groups. And someone pointed out, yeah, no, M390 can be really cheap. You know, what you're paying for is the heat treatment on it. So I'm left to wonder if this wasn't actually an M390 knife that was part of something that they were clearing a warehouse out of or something like that. Because I know the other steels listed can't do what I just saw. I'm hoping somebody that's watching this knows a lot more about stuff like this than I do and can maybe help clear this up. Because, you know, I don't know everything. You know, like a lot of this channel is sharing my experiences, sharing, you know, what I think about these things, and trying to be practical and, you know, explaining how they carried, how they cut, whether or not they were good knives. I don't know enough to be able to clear up this part of it, though. So hopefully one of you guys can tell me what's happening here and maybe what kind of blade steel this could be. You know, I'm confused and I'm blown away. I spent the whole day yesterday tripped out about how many cuts this was taking, because like I hit 100 and it was still cutting, you know, as cleanly as it did out of the box. I hit 200, it was still cutting clean. I hit 250 and it just started tearing a little bit when I cut. And after 300, you guys saw it. So one of the things that I kind of hate here is I am a form follows function kind of guy. You know, performance before aesthetics. This thing has dropped a performance that I absolutely did not expect, which means it's going to take first place. Like, we know this. And I think the rest of this showdown is going to be the fight for second place. I do not think anything else coming out of those boxes is going to do more than maybe 100 cuts before the edge is too deteriorated to cut cleanly anymore. You know, and I tried to push this to the point where the edge was totally gone. It just wouldn't happen. So, you know, this takes first place, and it definitely earned it, and I am still blown away and confused, and I wish to God this was on a knife with better aesthetic value. I mean, even the ergos were all right. They weren't the best ergos ever, but they did the job. They were adequate. Oh my God. Do you guys have a second pee bottle to throw? I hope to God you do. Okay, we got it that time. All right, the terrorists didn't win. But, you know, I could go on and on about how confused I am with the performance of this thing, but we're just going to say it was really good, and I don't know why. So this is a solid first place. This, of course, is still 10th place, but at least there's another knife on the field, and this doesn't have to feel as bad as it did last week when it got 10th place with no other competitors. This thing is still garbage. If you haven't seen the first one, go back and check out how bad this thing did. But yeah, so tune in next week for the next edition of the Temu Superbudget Showdown. TEMUGEDDON is going to go for 10 whole weeks. I'm going to pick out which one I want, and I know which one you guys think I'm going to pick, but I am edging on that one for a little while. I am trying to get the ones I'm the most nervous about out of the way, I'm not going to lie. But this has been week 2. All that being said, thanks for looking at my crap. Subscribers, thank you. More guys keep showing up. We finally peaked over 500. I am immensely grateful. That is awesome. It's taken a long time to get there, but I am so happy I got there. Comments. I love the feedback, guys. Thank you so much. And all that being said, y'all have a nice day.